The storyline of this anime is superb. I beg you not to judge it by its animation, because if you do, you will be missing a very good anime. It has over 70 episodes, giving you a detailed story on how the main character becomes the greatest general. It also entailed the story of ancient wartime. This is the part 1 of the movie review. Check my YouTube channel for the part 2. Please don't forget to hit the like, notification, and subscribe button. Also don't forget to comment, for it will really help us a lot. This is the tumultuous tale of a nameless boy and a young king, who ran gauntlet of this age of strife. Shin was an ordinary war orphan slave, who trained vigorously, with fellow slave and best friend, Hugh, who shares his proud dream of one day, becoming a great general of the heavens. Hugh and Shin continues their daily sparring session. The sparring continued for a while. We then see Shin jumps up and attack Hugh from above. A man who was in a carriage saw the two of them sparring together. He can see the strong will and seriousness in them. Hugh and Shin was in their rooms, but suddenly, their master's son came in a hurry. He told Hugh and Shin that something big has happened. They both rushed out in a hurry, but to their surprise, it was the same carriage they saw during their sparring session. The master hurriedly rushed out, shouting Hugh's name continuously. He rushed over towards Hugh, pushing Shin aside. He asked Hugh to come meet an important guest, while Hugh was left aside, telling Shin to go do his chores in the barn. The important guest was the man in the carriage. They all sat down silently. Then the housemaster tells Hugh that, from now on, the guest before him will become his new master. The man is named Shu Bunkin, who's the chancellor of the left of kin, and most loyal to the king. It's been 1 month since Hugh and Shin got separated. The man tells Shin that he has changed a lot. Like a baby monkey who has grown into monkey boy. The man then asked Shin if he's coping better, and was wondering if Hugh can cope with palace duties as a servant boy. Shin, who knows Hugh better, shouted that Hugh can cope in whatever situation he is in. It was night, and she was resting in his room. He suddenly opens his eyes. Due to hearing something outside, Shin stands up and walks to the door slowly. As he approached the door, he stretches out his hands to open the door. As he opens the door slowly, but to his surprise, he sees Hugh laying down on the ground lifelessly and seriously wounded. He was shocked and speechless at seeing how lifeless his best friend is. Hugh slowly telling Shin that he's back home. Shin screamed out Hugh's name furiously. He then asked the head of the house to quickly get a doctor. The master's son was also shocked by Hugh's condition. Shin screamed that they should go get a doctor. Hugh, who is on the bridge of death, slowly tells Shin that he doesn't feel pain at all and there is no need for a doctor. Shin was sad by his sentence, but rather Hugh asked that there's something he will want Shin to do for him before he died. Hugh slowly raised his hands to his back and brought out a paper. He gave the paper to Shin, but the paper contained a map. Hugh tells Shin that it's a map of a village west of their current location, named Kakuhimura Village. It's a village of outlaws, where thieves and murderers from every land turn up. It's a place of horror, from which they say a normal person will never come back alive. Hugh hugs Shin, telling him that they are identical both in ability and at heart, that the two of them are one at heart. He tells Shin that if he spreads his wings and fly, he will always be there with him. With his last strength and breath, he tells Shin to take him with him, conquering all under heavens. Hugh fell down slowly and gave his last breath. Shin screamed at the top of his voice, at death of his best friend. After Hugh's death, Shin decided to fulfill his final wish at all cost. Shin began to run non-stop heading to the village, and also to avoid the assassin. That was after Hugh. Shin jumps down from the bridge. He suddenly thought about what his master told him. The master warned him that he shouldn't go to Kakuhimura village because it's a village of killers, a horrifying place. He warned him that if he set foot in the village, he will never come back alive. But despite all his warning, Shin refused to listen. The master told Shin that he shouldn't bury Hugh's body because the pursuers would come. After Shin had left, the assassin arrived to retrieve Hugh's body. He was tall and very huge with an ugly face. He then walked slowly towards Hugh's dead body. He grabbed Hugh's head with his left hand, and dragged out his sword from his back slowly, in order to cut Hugh's head. As he was about cutting his head, the housemaster's son suddenly shouted that he should stop. He paused and turned back. He walked towards the child, pushed his parents away, and grabbed him by his clothes. As the boy screamed out his father's name, the assassin pierced a sword through his leg, wanting to threaten the parents, for them to spill out whatever they know, because he suspects that they are hiding something from him. He threatens the parents to speak quickly or else he will stab his heart. At the same time, Shin finally reached the destination, as indicated by the map. He was curious as to why Hugh died, and was wondering why Hugh will give him a map, leading to a decrepit shack. He stretches his hand towards the straw door to open it. As he opened the door, what he first saw was someone sitting while staring at the candle. But the most crazy part of everything is, that person looks exactly like his dead friend Hugh. Shin couldn't believe his eyes and was shocked. The person opens his eyes and looked at Shin. Shin was still in shock, and asked if he was Hugh. At the same time, the assassin was getting closer to them, after he has gotten the information about Shin's location from the housemaster. The village was curious about who he was, but the assassin walked slowly, cutting the neck of the first man that approached him. The cut was so smooth, clean and fast, even the man didn't know when his head reached the ground. Shin was still in the hut talking to himself, that the person looked exactly like Hugh, but he isn't Hugh. But the truth was that person was the king of Qin. Hugh was used to replace him during a coup d'etat in the palace. Because they looked alike, Shin asked, "Who are you? And why does he know Hugh? Also, why does he have the face of Hugh?" But the king didn't answer and picked up his sword, saying there aren't time to explain anymore, because the assassin has finally caught up to them. The assassin attacked the hut, as they both ran out to confront him. Shin asked the assassin about his identity, but the assassin crossed his hands, and tell Shin and the king that they won't be able to run away again. The king suddenly remembered, when Hugh told him that Shin is very strong. Shin went on an attack mode to slay the assassin. He cut the assassin by his waist, which made the assassin furious. The assassin released several powerful and fast attacks, while telling Shin that the horror is just the beginning. But the truth is that Shin has begun to read the assassin attacks. Shin brilliantly dodged the assassin's sword strike. The assassin was shocked that a small village boy was able to dodge his all-out strike. As Shin was dodging the attacks, he asked the assassin if that was all he was capable of doing. The assassin was furious that Shin, who is little, is able to dodge his blades. Shin fully attacked the assassin and gave him a scratch on his waist again. The assassin screamed as they both exchanged blows continuously. Shin gave an heavy strike, which pushed the assassin backwards. The assassin couldn't believe that he was cut by a little boy. Before the assassin realized it, Shin was already attacking from above his head. As Shin attacked the assassin, he broke the assassin's sword into two, which gave an opening to slice him in halves, which led to the assassin's death. After the coup d'etat in the palace was resolved, Shin had his first war campaign, preparing his part to become the great war general. While others was scared of being killed, Shin was very excited. He's already imaging the feeling of a general. He then said to his fellow five-man squad that he has been waiting for this moment his whole life. The group captain warned them not to get eager and trip, because they will be trampled to death by their fellow men. As the Shin charged, flying upward, went straight to the center of their defense line. He attacked brilliantly in the air, breaking their defense with a single strike. The men all shouted that Shin should be killed, but Shin's might was so overwhelming. He cut down the soldiers around him while breathing heavily. What Shin feels at that moment was the pressure of war, the thrills and feeling, which made him to be breathing hard. He was also wondering, maybe the reason he's wound too tight was because it's his first campaign. His body also feels heavier than normal, but the soldiers poured through the single crack Shin made in their wall. Shin was on a horseback, trying to attack the J's war chariot. The J's war chariot commander thinking that Shin was going to attack them head-on. But Shin's plan from the beginning was to attack the chariot wheel, which has been slaying them effortlessly. Shin drew out his sword and prepared for a counterattack. The G's commander was curious on what was happening in the dust cloud, boasting that they have far greater numbers, that anything that happens won't affect their war plan. Biggest picture. As he was talking, the Qin war commander, together with Shin, suddenly attacked. This led to panic. Shin was surprised that the enemy's number was far greater than what they anticipated, but the commander shouted not to let their number distract them, because their main goal is to break through, telling them to each kill 10 soldiers. Qiu Kai suddenly jumps from the horseback, skillfully landed. Bounce back up again. Qiu Kai is one of the most powerful martial artists in Qin. As Shin continues riding his horse, Qiu Kai told him not to stop as she leaps backwards. The G's army attacked, but she cut them all with a single strike. Then she started reciting her clan's fighting sound. Pum, pa rum, pum, pa rum, pum, pa rum, as in the sound of a drum. The soldiers was wondering what she was saying, as she began to display a sword dance. At the same time, one of the G's commander launched an arrow attack to Shin and the commander. It was all raining with arrow as it killed lot of Qin soldiers. As Shin was forcing his way through the arrows, the G's soldier fired a multi-bolt crossbow squadron, which is the sword of last defense. A smart tactician would like. The commander increased the soldiers' morale, telling them not to waver, that they are almost in there. The G's soldier commander decided to kill the Qin commander by himself. He stretched out an arrow, shooting it to the Qin commander, hitting him in the chest. The Qin commander almost fell from his horseback. As the G's commander was about to leave, he was called back by the soldiers. He saw Shin charging forward, saying that the Qin is short on soldiers. He decided to shoot Shin dead because he's an enemy, but Shin was able to block his arrow. He was surprised that Shin was able to read the path of his arrow. As he was about to fire the second shot, Shin was hoping that as long as he didn't hit a vital spot, he will be able to get within striking distance. But rather, he shot the horse head, and Shin was thrown away from the horseback. Before the commander could draw out another arrow from his back and other to shoot Shin, Shin uses the opportunity in air to land a very fatal blow, which caught the commander off guard, leading to his death.